My goal in this talk is that you would be inspired to buy one. I have a few hundred books on herbal medicine. Is that you buy one book on herbal medicine, that if you feel like you need to know something, you have the tools to help yourself. That's my goal in this talk. Okay? It's a very one book, and I can make a recommendation. And I'm just bringing a sample so you can get a sense. We're good, Sean? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to explain. First, I want to say what I do.
How you started.
How I started, yeah. So my name is Malka Reichman. I'm a naturopathic doctor and an herbalist. A naturopath is someone who tries to address the root cause of disease, not by symptom suppression, by trying to understand the root cause, like almost like a detective, basically, like a health detective. So a person could make those changes because the body is wired towards self-healing. Like the body is an incredible self-healing mechanism. So if a person just either makes a change or has a nutritional deficiency and it's fixed, the body itself would heal. That's how the body is wired. It's just miraculous. And I'm also an herbalist. An herbalist is someone who uses herbs for healing. You could be a naturopath and not an herbalist, meaning use a few herbs, right? It's not necessarily the same thing, but a lot of people do both who are in this field because the herbs are such a helpful tool to help people heal. So what is herbal medicine? So herbal medicine, when you get into it, is basically, when I first started learning about herbs, I felt like, these Mario games and you drop down and there's a whole coin room and you could collect all the coins? The first time I learned about herbal medicine, I felt like I was winning a Mario game, as a kid and collecting coins. I just couldn't believe that you could take a simple herb and for a headache, for a stomach ache, for anything, to regulate a heartbeat, for thyroid function, for literally anything, and not be worried about a side effect, suppressing the body. So many times, if my kid wasn't feeling well, I would give emotional support, even in my uninformed state. I didn't want to give Tylenol. Did I know that it's the number one cause of liver transplants because it depletes the body of glutathione, a key molecule that the liver needs? No. But I knew it wasn't healthy, but I knew you kind of have to weigh, should you just try to fall asleep if you have the headache, or should you take the Tylenol? I didn't realize it's like I said, number one cause of liver transplants, but people who take Tylenol. But what I didn't realize that you could help yourself in a way that you're not weighing, do I want to hurt myself and suppress something else, but do I want to get help, right? I try to fall asleep to avoid taking Tylenol, right, for a headache. Did I know that I could literally get turmeric from my supermarket, which is a natural anti-inflammatory, or rub peppermint oil on my forehead? They're just such simple things you could use, and these things are without any side effects. Now, of course, if you abuse any substance, even water, a person could die from drinking too much water. They'll have an electrolyte imbalance, and it's too much of anything is no good. But it's almost like a food because the body processes herbs like food, so it's just so harmless. Any herb that's is very, very potent becomes restricted, so the regular person cannot order it themselves online in a herbal shop. So it's just so simple. So I'm going to give you a sense of what is herbal medicine and how to prepare it. There are 4 ways that people take herbs. What you could use it for. My favorite herbs that I have a few hundred herbs in my house just for fun. Because why not? It's literally God's bounty in this world to help humanity, help people and animals. There are literally cases and stories of farmers who have seen animals walk towards, let's say, red clover bushes because they had cancer and they healed themselves from red clover helps heal cancer. So they're an animal intuitively knew that this bush is good for them. I'm saying plants are here for humans and animals. It's here to help this world. And there's 500,000 plants. So let's get started. So herbal medicine is basically a part of a plant. It could be an above ground plant. It could be below the ground part of the plant. There could be the root, the stem, the leaf, the bud, the seed. There's so many parts of the plant that potentially could be herbal medicine. And you could have one plant that the seed is, let's say something like horse chestnut, right? So the nuts you wouldn't use. But for varicose veins, you would want to use the other parts of the plant, right? Like the horse chestnut tree. So it really depends on the plant. And what's interesting about herbal medicine is that it also depends when it's picked. Quality of herbal medicine is its own topic, and we're not going to talk a lot about it, but if you were picking your own herbal medicine, you'd want to pick the right part of the plant, but you also want to pick it at the right time, because sometimes when they're flowering, sometimes it's before. That's something that's complicated. You really have to know. But if you're just buying the product and you're following a book of what to order, the herbal shop, you buy from a reliable herbal shop, that stuff you don't have to pay attention to, but it's just good to know that these are concepts that if you were wall crafting and you were trying to pick something, there are rules to the stuff. So that's what herbal medicine is. Basically 500,000 plants and around the world that could help a person literally with any health ailment. And we know about the uses of about 10,000 herbs. Now, the information with the herbs kind of got lost. Like, that's why we don't know so many, right? Just a reference, a biblical reference. You know, when Essiac, the king, he hid the book of healing, right? What did he hide? Did he hide the book of drugs? No, synthetic drugs are around like 100 years. So he hid the information on these plants. That's my guess. I'm just interpreting. I mean, what did he hide? He didn't hide homeopathy, because homeopathy has been around since the 1800s. And we can explain what the difference between herbal medicine and homeopathy, and it's vastly different. So he must have hid the information on these herbs. What's what? So we have the information about 10,000. I certainly don't know 10,000 herbs. There's no one who knows 10,000 herbs. There's different parts of the world that have access to different herbs. I deal with Western herbs. There are people who deal with Eastern herbs, right? Like, there are so many different herbs that grow all over the place. Definitely some of the herbs that we use, like ginkgo, is from the East, right? Everyone knows ginkgo for the mind. People have mind issues. Even if you don't have mind issues, you could take it. It's like almost an adaptogen herb. That's something a person could use just to help themselves, right? So for sure, Western herbalists are using some Eastern herbs, but there are going to be names, and especially people who use Chinese medicine are going to be using a lot of Eastern herbs. Different parts of the world are going to be using different herbs. Like, I ordered butter bar online, and it was coming from Eastern Europe. But butter bar is like for people who want to have not have a histamine effect, like an allergic reaction. So I wanted to just have it as like a herbal medicine option and make it into an alcohol tincture, and I'll explain what that is. And it was coming from Eastern Europe. It's not grown in the US. But yeah, Western herbalists use that because I guess it's just such a useful herb. They don't know of an alternative. So there's going to be an overlap. But there are so many different herbs, I'm saying, and they grow in different parts of the world, but there's overlap between, like in Western herbalism, they're going to use herbs from, I was shocked that I couldn't get in the US and have to order from Europe, And that's just the reality. There's going to be a crossover. So that's what herbal medicine is. I want to explain the difference between a drug and an herb, because I get this question a lot. People tell me, what do you mean? I mean, people know they come with papers in the drug that's a list of side effects, right? But a lot of people ask me, don't drugs come from plants, right? Okay, so I'm going to answer that question. First of all, drugs are not plants at all, okay? They have a very different effect on the body, and I'm going to explain to you why they're very different. A drug is the isolated alkaloid, which is a very active component of the plant. The plant has thousands of components within it, and they interact with each other to create a very gentle effect on the body. So the alkaloids are these very active components within the plant. So let's say drug researchers will, let's say, find a herb somewhere, and they'll, let's say, isolate the alkaloid in the plant. They'll say, hey, this has a certain effect on the body. So what will they do? They won't now start growing fields and fields of this herb, because anyone could do that, and then they're not going to be able to be paid for what they're researching, what they're producing, because anyone could grow herbs. So what they do is they extract the alkaloid, they literally copy it in a laboratory, a synthetic version. So a pill is basically synthetic stuff, you're not eating plants, and it's like the chemical component they're trying to copy in the lab, which will have a similar effect on the body, will have a very different effect on the body in terms of it's very, very strong. It doesn't have the thousands of other plant components to balance out the alkaloid effect. It's going to suppress the body to force a reaction. It won't address the root cause. That's what the difference between drugs and herbs. So even though it may be inspired, I would say, by a plant, meaning they learned that, that plant-based alkaloid that could have a certain effect on the body, but the end effect is vastly different. Because one, it could be 0.1% of this alkaloid in the whole plant, and you're making it into a gentle tea, and the other one is 100% this alkaloid in a synthetic version. So you can't compare the effect on the body. And I'm going to give you an example. everyone knows cocaine is deadly, right? Cocaine is deadly. It's very addictive. It can have permanent, lasting effects on the body, and it's illegal, right? Everyone knows that people could die of drug overdose from taking cocaine. What is cocaine from? Cocaine is a drug that's made in a lab. Cocaine is the alkaloid in the coca plant. The coca plant is a harmless plant. The locals use it in like the leaf, they'll make a tea for altitude sickness or to inhibit appetite. It's almost like caffeine, like in coffee. Like that's the effect of a stimulant. The 0.1 to, it's basically, I wrote down, 0.2 to 1% cocaine alkaloid in the coca plant. So what do? They extract it, and when a person is taking cocaine, I mean, it could be mixed with other things also, but they're using probably 100% cocaine. And I don't know if it's just the extraction, or in this case, they're making a synthetic version. I mean, it's not like I don't think it's like a patented thing. So it could be they're just doing this extraction. They're probably processing in a laboratory. That's my guess, that it's processed. Because anything that's so deadly like that, I mean, there are plants, by the way, that are poisonous, like foxglove, but people use, very experienced herbalists use it to regulate someone's heartbeat in minute amounts. Not me. You have to be someone who like specializes in these plants and has a way of getting it, but like, there are definitely plants in minute amounts that could be used in a helpful way. But I'm giving you an example of something that we know is so toxic, like the cocaine, when the coca plant is a harmless plant and it's totally allowed in South America. They grow it. It's just the extraction method and the processing that makes it so dangerous, right? But we have that with food also. If you would juice your sugar cane plant, you wouldn't be demineralizing your whole body like processed sugar. So it's really the processing that makes things so unsafe. So it's not an herb, drugs, okay, at all. And then there's this other question that people have, which is, are there plants that are not safe? Like people understand, let's say they understand the hype against cannabis or marijuana, right? Because that is a straight plant. I mean, if you're buying it from a reliable herbal shop, you could be buying it on the street, then it's ultra processed. I would not recommend buying anything just if you don't know what it is. But I'm talking about it clearly, it's the 5-leaf shape. You're buying something you could identify. It hasn't been altered or processed. Marijuana that has not been altered and processed is extremely medicinal, extremely. And it was banned about 100 years ago because the opioid drug business wanted to promote their drugs, the opioid business for pain is huge, huge. Cannabis is such a natural pain relief. So now what's happening is that there's just a push for the consumer push back, that we want this plant back. So that's why you have states, on the federal level, let's say in the US, it's outlawed, but state by state, they started allowing it. Some need restricted use, some not restricted use. You know, when we were in Florida, I wanted to get cannabis. Actually, I wanted to try to use it as a pain relief for childbirth. So I went and got the Florida license to get cannabis. I went into a dispensary, like I went through the process, but I wasn't impressed with anything they were selling because everything looked ultra processed. They were selling like gels or gummies, and like they didn't look healthy to me. I'm like, I just want the plant. I just want to make a tea. So I didn't use any. And I ended up speaking to a midwife who's been doing this for like 40 years in Florida, and she said she has definitely had clients who use cannabis as a pain relief, but it could slow down labor, so I was very afraid of that, and I didn't want to slow down labor, so I didn't touch it. I mean, I couldn't get a good source. But if I had permission to grow cannabis, I would just grow it myself and use it. There are definitely herbalists, and I've read books about herbalists in upstate New York. They grow it, they sell it, and it's extremely medicinal. I mean, people who have like, let's say even in Israel here, if someone gets permission from a cannabis doctor, I mean, there are doctors who specialize, I guess, in giving permission people to use cannabis. People use it for cancer, people use it for chronic pain issues. There's just such a host of, it's probably the plant that does the most. That's just what it is.
It's meant to be used in small portions, again, as opposed to a consistent, that doesn't do damage if it's used often and consistently, as opposed to for a medical reason at a
So
specific time.
nothing, I would not recommend anything from the street. Like people who are smoking cannabis, it's just anyone's wild guess.
Smoking it, is that?
Smoking, I would definitely not recommend, because anytime someone's smoking, they're going to be taking in other toxins with the smoke. So I would definitely not recommend taking it in smoking form. But using the straight plant, like if somebody, I don't know what they're selling in a dispensary, and I told you my experience of going to a flower dispensary, I was not impressed, and not all of it looked like processed or extractions with the THC stuff. I wouldn't be interested in that. I'd be interested in the straight plant that literally someone grew, and you take the flower and make a tea. That's just what it is. Could it, I mean, I've read books on, let's say, medical doctors in California who recommend cannabis to different people for different issues, and they write that they have never seen abuse of it at all. Like, they're pushing for it, you know, why it should be totally legal without restriction. They have never seen people who need it for medical reasons abuse it or get addicted to it at all. And there is no, like, wait, they do say that the first time someone uses it, they don't have an effect. Like, if they're looking for a certain pain effect, they actually have to use it like a second time. I'm just giving you an example of a plant that has had very bad rap, very bad reputation for not a good reason. And the bad reputation does not come from the general public. It comes from competitor, right? A drug competitor, meaning the term marijuana is a very pejorative term. It's like a Spanish term. It's meant to create this like unsettled feeling, like what is this plant? When this is a plant that was required to be grown on property in the US, designated pieces of land were designated to grow this plant because it was so necessary, also for clothing like hemp. So it's such a necessary plant, and it's so sad that it became marginalized. But there are other plants also that are so potent, like even the poppy plant. Like, that's such a potent plant for pain relief, but you can't get it. It's really restricted. There's also a very good plant that's very restricted called ephedra, which helps people with like asthma. Like, it does kind of like what the steroid asthma does. Also restricted. Chinese medical doctors do use it in their like formulations, but it's a restricted herb. What I'm saying is that the herbs that people know, I'm trying to dispel a myth, basically. People could think, I'm trying to say herbs are amazing, but you could be thinking in your head, hey, what about marijuana? The people smoking marijuana is not what I'm saying. I say don't smoke it.
And also the
I
passive
say,
smoke for I live in Nachlo.
I don't know
Is
what,
that bad as well?
it could be, it's a very distinct smell, so you know what you're smelling.
Yeah, I do know. Yeah.
We're going to do questions at the end, so I just stay focused, and I know that people heard the basic here. I'm going to explain 4 ways to prepare herbs, okay? So these are traditional ways that, like, even in the Bible and the Torah, they prepared it this way. This is nothing new. Maybe the alcohol base, I don't know if it's a biblical reference, but definitely with oil, crushing, or soaking in hot water. These are all like traditional ways that people prepare herbs. So this is the way to prepare herb. The most basic way you could imagine is just grinding it down, right? Like stevia, right? So stevia is an herb, and not the white stevia from the supermarket, because that's processed, that has added things to it. So green stevia, that's bright green, that comes from an herbal shop. It's 160 times the strength of sugar. I don't use it because I don't like the taste, but it's actually very helpful for people who want a very strong sweetener in a tea. It's good for people who are diabetic because it's like a zero glycemic effect on the body. So that's like green stevia, right? So how does it prepared? It's literally ground and crushed. It's a powder. So there are definitely herbs that are powder. Like I take sometimes ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is just an adaptogen herb. Adaptogen herb is an herb that helps a person deal with physical and mental stresses. So just like a boost, a very gentle one. And I hate the taste, but I hide into things when I want to give myself that boost, because like it's just like I said, God's bounty. Why can't I use this stuff? You buy it in Essiac, Devon here. You could get crushed ashwagandha powder, and the way that's taken is literally with a powder. Okay, so that's the most basic way to eat an herb, just crushed. The next way to eat an herb is soaked in water. I would say that's like the next most basic way to consume an herb. You don't eat the herb itself, unless it's like an Essiac tea blend, which I'll explain. But in most of the cases, you're not boil. Now, let me explain. When it comes to water, there's 2 different ways to prepare it. 3 different ways to prepare it. You are, in most cases, and I'm going to tell you like other exceptions, you are preparing the plant with water. That means the water-soluble parts of the plant are being released into the water. You're drinking the water, discarding the herb. You could compost it if you want to do good. But the water is what you're drinking, and anything that the water-soluble parts go into the water, and you don't take in the herb. So there are a couple ways to do it. With most plants, like the gentle parts of the plant, the leaf, the flower, the seeds, you use a tea. A tea is what we're familiar with. You boil up your filtered water. We can talk about how to filter water because it's part of this, how to make water with your tea. It's very big, water, filtered water. You boil up your filtered water, you turn off the fire, you then add your tea, you cover it, right? You let it sit 10-15 minutes till it's not so hot anymore. You mix it a little bit so it's covered the water in it. You strain out the herb, you drink your tea, right? That is a straightforward way of preparing that herbal medicine. That's called an herbal infusion, if you want the herbal term for it. That's a tea.
Just a question to clarify.
Yeah.
Depending on how you prepare it, are the effects of it gonna be better or worse? Like if you grind it versus drinking it, is one gonna be stronger?
So it really depends on the herb, and different herbs, like if you get the herbal book, it will give you the recommendation on how you should eat it. They have different recommendations. Some herbs are ground, some you can do a few different options. It really depends on the herb. So one is a water infusion. One is a water infusion that you're not boiling, right? The other one is called a decoction. Decoction is when you take, let's say, juniper berries, or what are those berries that people love? Elderberries, okay? So you don't do an infusion because the dried berry is so hard. You boil it in the boiling water for a certain amount of time, okay? They'll have different rules with different herbs. You literally just turn on your boiling water, add your herb, it boils for a certain amount of minutes with the fire on, then you turn it off, it cools off. That's another way to. Some very gentle herbs, now I don't, this is not how I normally prepare things, but I definitely have read that there are ways, people sometimes prepare an herb called a cold infusion. That just means you literally just take your herb in water, let's say room temperature water, you leave it covered for let's say 24 hours. There's gonna be some of the plant elements going into the water. It's a very gentle way for the herbal aspects to go into the water. You're not applying any heat, just a cold infusion. So that's just not a regular way of preparing herb. And now I just want to say that sometimes you do consume the herb. There's a very famous herb blend called Essiac, Essiac. Now in this class, we're not going to sit and teach herbs. Like you're welcome to try to pay attention to herbal herbs. Your best bet is to try to get an herbal book, and I'll explain what they're teaching, showing you an herbal book. But just Essiac, just that you know, is literally a blend of either 8 to 10 herbs, which clean the liver and clean the blood. Now, Essiac is not a name of an herb. This is burdock rue, watercress, red clover. It's a list of these herbs. I think there's some kelp or dulse or some other kind of seaweed, I think, also mixed in. But it's basically for people who have serious health problems like cancer or fibromyalgia or anything that really has like a serious toxicity cause, because serious chronic health problems are usually caused by toxicity in the body. So when people take Essiac blend, and I'll explain what Essiac blend is, it helps clean the liver, clean the blood, and people have seen serious results from health problems. Now in the Essiac, from genuineessiac.com, their instructions are pretty unique. Their instructions say because people are like really sick and they kind of just want people to consume the herb too. So they'll say like, boil the herb, let it steep for 24 hours, and then don't strain it, and then consume the herbs on the bottom. Like, because they want to have this like very solid effect from these herbs. But I'm saying the normal way of preparing is basically you want to make a chamomile tea because you want to relax before bedtime, some lavender. You're going to do an infusion. That means you're going to boil your water, turn it off, put in your herb, let it sit for 10-15 minutes, like a regular normal tea. That is the most common way to prepare herbs. Unless it's the root, unless it's the dried berry, in that way you'll boil it on the fire in the water. So that's the third, is that the second? That's the second way to prepare herbs, okay? You're with me? Okay. The third way to prepare herbs, now this is like ancient stuff. They would crush the herb, or not crush it, and soak it in oil, right? When they had the anointing oil for kings, right? What was that? They soaked herbs, and we have those herbs, right? The myrrh, the frankincense, was it frankincense? I don't know. Well, definitely with cinnamon. We have those herbs. They literally soaked it in olive oil for I don't know how long, a couple weeks, and then they strain out the herb, and they had an herbal infused oil. And I make this all the time. It's on my counter right now. I literally crush herbs. Let's say I want to make arnica oil for a wound, a bruise, right? So what am I going to do? I personally like to crush the herb first, because then I have like tons of surface area of the plant in my oil. You don't have to, a lot of people don't. They'll just stuff in the, let's say, arnica flowers in their herbal oil, and then after a couple of weeks, they'll shake their oil every day. I don't bother, and mine just sits forever basically in the oil. And then they strain out the plant, they use that oil, and then their oil they can make a cream out of. I don't like drippy oil as a cream, so what I do is I use a double boiler. There are all these methods you can learn how to do it. It's super easy. If you ever made like a cake with chocolate and use a double boiler to melt your chocolate, it's the same idea. I melt a little bit of beeswax. I don't know if it's like, I forget what percent, maybe 3% of the oil. And then while it's hot, I'm able to quickly add my oil, but I don't want to heat up my oil because then I'll destroy my plant properties. So I quickly, frantically mix my melted beeswax into my oil. Then I'm able to pour it into these little glass jars and have this most amazing cream. Because it doesn't spill if I turn it upside down. The beeswax is just the most, one of the most amazing things on earth. I mean, beeswax is just phenomenal. I used to put it in like soap that I make, a tiny percentage to keep it hard and doesn't fall apart, the soap in the shower. It's just an amazing thing, beeswax. It has a lot of health properties. And it makes a cream. It makes the herbal cream from a runny oil into something you could smear. So it's really good. I use it for calendula cream, making a cream that could soothe burns and help itchy skin. I crush calendula flowers and I soak it in olive oil, and then I add this beeswax and I have an amazing cream. And then I can add some essential oils to make it like really potent for infection and for other things. So that's what I do with an herbal oil. Okay, and the next way, which is like a very, very popular way, I don't know if it's like an ancient way of preparing, I don't know if like a source, but I just know this is like a way that people have used herbs. I'm sure it's going back thousands of years, I don't know how much, but in an alcohol, crushing an herb, or not crushing it, and just putting it in a glass jar and pouring vodka, let's say, over the herb, draws the alcohol components out of the plant. There are different soluble components. There's the herbal soluble, the water soluble aspects. This is the alcohol soluble aspects. Pour the alcohol soluble aspects over the plant, and it breaks down at a certain level. And this is how people have medicine on demand that lasts many, many years. Because your tea is not going to last more than 2 days, 3 days, right? The alcohol is going to last at least 7 years. It'll be potent. I mean, it probably won't get spoiled. I don't know when it'll get spoiled at some point, but it will last for sure 7 years, they say, in a cold, dark place. So it's a very easy way to have medicine on demand. If someone wants valerian, like an herb that helps sleep, right? You're gonna start making a tea in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, have trouble sleeping? No. They take a tincture of this valerian. It's on my counter. It's such an easy thing to produce. You crush the valerian flowers, you pour over your alcohol. It does not stay clear, right? Alcohol is clear. It's dark brown after like 5 minutes, and by now it's dark brown. Now after a certain amount of time, I could strain out the plant, and I'll have literally just black, dark brown liquid. Like traditionally, when you think of an apothecary from 100 years ago, right? What do you think they had in there? They had in the apothecary a bunch of alcoholic tinctures. I could almost visualize it, right? These dark amber glass bottles, and they squeezed probably a whole bunch and gave you a custom blend if someone came in sick. I mean, it would be so nice if they had things like this. But they do have, most of the world actually, 80% of the world uses herbal medicine as their primary form of healing. So, and in Europe, it's definitely being used. It's really just the US that it's having a big comeback right now, but it's new. It's new in the last 10, 15 years. But in Europe, definitely they use herbal medicine, and in most of the world, this is their primary form of healing. So a tincture is a very nice way to have medicine on demand, and you could be creative. Like I've made different concoctions with trying to help people who have extra fluid in the ear. I put 8 or 10 different herbs into a jar, pour alcohol over it, and you have a concoction.
Wait, so how do you take it
Yeah,
exactly?
what do you?
So how do you take it? You basically, so there's going to be the same thing with different amounts, and you're going to strain out the herb. You strain out the herb when it's ready. You have an alcohol that's dark brown. I pour it into little glass jars, like 2-ounce jars. It has like a dropper, and so you'll have different guidelines depending on the herb. And depending how strong you made it to begin with, it'll be like a dropper full every
You put
twice
it like
a
on
day.
your tongue?
You could eat it plain. You could add it to a cup of water.
Oh.
If you are okay with
You're not
drinking.
gonna get a shot from it.
You're not gonna get drunk from it. I mean,
Okay.
there are ways to probably release the alcohol from a tincture for kids. Now, yeah, you're bringing me to another point. If you're making a tincture for kids, there are other things to soak the plant in besides alcohol. So people have used apple cider vinegar. I think that's also kind of strong. People definitely use like certain forms of glycerin. Like if you look on Amazon at Herb Farm, HERBPHARM, Herb Farm is the company. So if you want to get something for a kids, a lot of times they use like a vegetable glycerin as the extraction method instead of a tincture. It's probably taking out less properties from the plant, but they want to be very gentle on a 2-year-old or whatever it is. Look, an alcoholic, tincture is a zillion times safer than giving a kid any over-the-counter medication. Like, it's a zillion times safer. But if you want to be like super gentle, you could do vegetable glycerin, right? It's going to be non-toxic, but the body doesn't have a great ability to detox from alcohol at a young age. So if you want to be ultra sensitive, you're gonna use these other things that are meant for kids. They try to soak the herb in, something else. But of course, if someone's doing for an ear infection, is doing garlic mullein oil, right? The garlic they soak and mullein flowers, 2 things people use for, let's say, ear infections. Herb Farm sells it already made, but if you wanted to make something like that yourself, that's just an oil and it's going directly in the ear. It's not an alcohol. But, for a tincture or kids, just have a tea, Those are the ways to prepare an herb. So, when one of the laws of Shabbos is tochen, grinding, right? You don't only grind. And the question always was like, where does grinding come from? Why can't we grind? It's because the grinding was in the way to prepare the bread. But one of the aspects of the laws is that's why people don't take certain medication on Shabbos unless they must, because of this law of tochen, grinding. And the question is why were they grinding medicine? You're talking about white pills. I never understood it. It's a white pill. Suddenly we're talking about grinding. And then you always learn, back then they grinded medicine. But it's not only back then. I do it in my own kitchen. I use a seed grinder and I grind down. I grind down the herb to make it potent, to make it accessible, to make it that many sides of the plant are released into the water, right? So that's where the grinding comes from. You can't do medicine on Shabbos. Okay, I'm going to give you a sample.
Even though they're all natural.
The herbal medicine, I don't know if you could take herbal medicine on Shabbos.
Maybe.
Depends on ill. It's probably the same exact thing when it comes to medication. Exact same thing. Exactly. So I'm just going to give you a sample of herbs that I like, just to give you a wild sample. This is not the way to learn medicine. You need a book if you want to be serious about this. 1 book. I'm not saying 400, but just 1. And you could choose your favorite herb. I'm just going to give you a wild sample of why you should even bother. So I'm going to give you just what comes off the top of my head. So if I had to go away, in our travel emergency bag, I'm going for Shabbos, I would literally pack something like turmeric, because that's a natural inflammatory if someone has a headache or is in pain for something. So because it's let's say in a travel point, I would dehydrate it on a very low setting in my dehydrator, so I could you could just add it to water or just swallow it, in a form that's easy. Or you can just get it in a powder form, but the problem with powder is that it lasts a very short amount of time. Basically, it's just best to keep it in your freezer because it's exposed to so much surface air.
What, the turmeric?
The powder, yeah. If you buy a powdered herb, it's not going to stay super potent unless it's in the freezer.
What about the turmeric spice?
So turmeric spice is really medicinal. You could literally take a teaspoon of it in a cup of water if someone has a headache. The problem is, if it's not organic, it has PPO chemical, which is irradiated. In America, at least, they irradiate it literally with cobalt, which is radioactive stuff. If it's in the freezer, they'll keep it much more potent, but you want to get it organic. You don't want it to be, because if they irradiate it, they're going to destroy health properties of it. But you're best off just getting the turmeric root. What I recommend is just getting a turmeric root. It's the size of your pinky finger. You ever seen it? You know it. It looks like ginger. It's just a little smaller. It's bright orange. And if you keep it in your freezer, you have it on demand. You could always just slice off with a knife when it's frozen and then just use a slice as needed. Same thing with ginger. Ginger would be my second thing that you must own. Someone has a stomach, indigestion, something, even someone with menstrual cramps. Ginger. So just to shave some off if you have the frozen bark. The least processing, the better. So if you have the whole bark that hasn't been processed, you that's your best bet. And they have it in they have it in like grocery stores. You know?
Bar or the root? What's a bar?
It's called the rhizome. It's like the underground section. It's like the root. The turmeric and ginger is the underground aspect of the plant.
What do you mean a bar? A bar.
A what?
A bar. You said frozen bar.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, so you basically just shave off a piece and you just swallow it,
Or
and
you eat it whole.
Or you can make it-
water and just drink the
or
water.
you can make the water. But I think, like we see with Essiac, is when you actually consume it, if you really want that power, I recommend probably just
To
consume
chew
it.
it.
Yeah, to chew it. People have some kind of tooth pain. Now I'm going to make recommendations for herbal tooth pain here. I'm going to do that. But I'm saying if someone has some kind of inflammation, they could also bite a piece of turmeric and ginger. Ginger helps pain relief also. So they could bite it and put it on their gum. If they're feeling uncomfortable, it helps pain.
You can't take too much. You can take a big chunk.
It's totally non-toxic. It's like food grade. We're talking about culinary herbs. Now, culinary herbs are in their own class of herbs. These are herbs that like you literally use in your kitchen. They're good for everyone, even people who are pregnant nursing. Now, there are exceptions for people pregnant nursing, like sage could dry up the breast milk. So there are even limitations, I guess, with people, but like they're mostly just culinary herbs. Are the things in your supermarket are herbs that were meant to just be part of a diet. And because of today's day and age where the soil is just so depleted, and I'm talking about getting organic food, so they're not sprayed with toxic chemicals, and then they have seed integrity, so they're not genetically modified. But still, because the soil is just so depleted, just like if a woman was, let's say, on chronic, let's say a woman was on birth control, right? And her entire microbiome was depleted, and she was limited of vitamins, because that's what it does. It depletes a woman of these vitamins, and if her child, and if she doesn't try to replenish her gut before she tries to have a child, she could have, let's say, a learning disabled child, right? That's just the reality of a depleted gut. And it's the same thing with the soil. So if someone grows food in a soil that's depleted of microorganisms and nutrients, if you're spraying it with toxins, you're not going to have these microorganisms growing. You could be having literally an orange with 0 vitamin C. So these herbs is part of enriching a diet. So even if you're buying organic food and you're buying unprocessed food, like that's a discussion of why unprocessed. Even if you're doing that and you're fermenting vegetables and you're milling your own flour, like I do. We eat fermented vegetables every day. I mill my own flour, so I have the B vitamins and the germ in the bread, and I ferment it into a sourdough. And I don't eat sugar at all. I don't eat processed food at all. I don't own anything from a supermarket that was processed. Maybe with the exception of maybe raisins, organic raisins that I use sparingly. Someone else dried it for me. I didn't dry the raisins, but really nothing. I'm talking they don't have preservatives. They haven't been sprayed, but they've been processed. Someone else handled it for me, right? I don't look at it as medicine because someone else touched that food. But even if you're doing this, you still are dealing with food that is just so nutrient depleted. So a person could just not be taking in enough vitamins. Like they say, like it takes 10 oranges in today's generation as your grandparents had in one orange, the same vitamin C. Because we're dealing with, they don't rotate the soil, they don't let it rest, they kill it with sprays, and even if it's an organic farm, their groundwater, the seepage is all over the place. They have smokestacks in the Far East, where burning coal, and then you have your mercury going into the ocean, going into your rain. The world is such a polluted place. So even if you're trying your best, you can't possibly have the full amount of nutrients in your diet. So what I'm trying to say is that culinary herbs are so big because they are just so healing and so healthy. And a lot of the culinary herbs that we know, like thyme, oregano, rosemary, cilantro, parsley, right? The herbs in our supermarket, most of the reason they're in the supermarket is because they are digestive healing herbs. Like they help with digestion. So that's why thyme and rosemary pair well with lamb and meats, because these are fatty foods, and it just traditionally helped the person digest the food, right? People grind it up, put it in their chutney, because when they make a grill, because they want to limit the PHA chemicals on their grill. So that's why traditionally they were paired with foods, because they're herbs like other herbs. But why were they introduced? Is because they help the digestive system. They taste delicious. They are a spice, but they're very healthy. So even something like black pepper could help prevent strokes, right? It's a circulatory herb. Like these herbs are so medicinal. So like something like black pepper, I don't want to just have it ground, because I explained that ground herbs lose their potency because they're exposed to so much surface area. So I do use ground pepper, organic, when I need to throw into a soup, because I'm not going to sit there with my shaker. I have my limits. But on the table, I'll have that grinder with the whole peppercorns, the black peppercorns, because I want people to be able to grind the fresh, because how could you compare? So I'm trying to explain that if you start learning about the potency of culinary herbs, things you thought were simple stuff, you'll see they're far from simple. Because something like thyme helps like a throat infection. Oregano is a very potent antimicrobial. Sage also helps a sore throat. Just like I said, people are nursing should not use it. But traditionally this food has been used like with things like meat. Rosemary helps, memory and concentration. The Roman laurel wreaths, what were they? You go to Caesarea, it's full of rosemary. That's what they had on their heads, because it also helps like keep the hair black and keep the hair thick. People use rosemary oil in their hair products. The essential oil, they just add it to the hair products. So these herbs have a lot of medicinal value. They have great taste. The way to enjoy them is in a totally unprocessed way. So if you're getting it dried, at least get it like in bigger pieces, or you could just dry it yourself. But benefit from the medicinal aspects of the supermarket, where the turmeric, the ginger, the thyme, oregano, parsley, cilantro. Anyone else help me? What's in the supermarket? What? Dill, thank you.
What does dill do?
Dill helps digestion. It does a lot of other stuff. Like, the herbs do dozens and dozens of things. There's no way you're going to catch someone and ask them, like, what is this? You have to look it up if you want to
What about the
study.
spices? Oh, they didn't count.
All the spices count. Like what?
Paprika.
Right, so I don't know the specific medicinal, I'm sure it has medicinal value. If you're getting it but once it's like ground to a powder and it's not organic, it's good, but you're not gonna have very potent, results. That's just how it is. So if I was packing to go away, my favorite herbs would be the turmeric, the ginger. I would take clove oil if someone has a tooth issue. I would pack, what are basics? I would pack some calendula oil if someone has an itch, and the bug bite thing for like a mosquito bite, like a manual suction to take out the venom. But like calendula oil if someone has like a rash or something.
Which oil? Calendula?
Calendula. Yeah. Calendula. What other stuff will you pack? It's like I'm a pack bag, but I'm not sure.
Aloe vera got in too or not really?
Yeah, aloe is fantastic. So aloe is terrific. I don't know where to get aloe here, like a thick, nice thing, but I know it's
All
easy.
over, people grow it.
People grow it?
Is it not the right?
It's excellent. I haven't seen it like really thick like they have in Whole Foods in the US. I used to always just keep it in the fridge because aloe really helps burns and helps skin issues. It's just like very important to have on hand. So aloe is just a very good first aid basic herb, but just a basic herb people should have. I'm trying to think of like top 10.
Garlic?
Garlic is definitely up there, especially fermented garlic. Yes, that's something in my top 10. Fermented garlic makes it, I have fermented garlic on my counter because it makes it that the raw garlic is probably one of the most medicinal herbs on earth. There's a reason that it's been incorporated into just food and medicine and why it's been around. And this is an herb that crosses cultures. Like this is something that's in the East, in the West, all over the world. Because of it's so delicious and it's so medicinal. Now, raw garlic is hard in the stomach and has garlic breath, so people don't like taking it, even though it's like the most amazing prevention medicine for degenerative diseases. People don't like eating it because of these two issues. The best way to use garlic, in my opinion, is to ferment it. Fermented garlic is much more potent, like fermenting any vegetable. You don't get that garlic breath, and it's not hard on the stomach. It's crunchy like a pickle. It's not like impossible to chew. I let it ferment on the counter much more than 1 week. Mine sits for like, I think mine is like on the counter right now for a month. I should probably just put it in my fridge right now. It's fine. Like, it's not so heavy, hard to use. We happen to just use it, and I just puree it and my fermented purple onion and mix it into a kale salad. So that's why I kind of like get my family to eat this. Instead of saying just eat plain garlic cloves, I like puree it on the S blade. I'm that sneaky. Puree it so it's mush. You can tell. I mix it into, massage it into the kale. You cannot see. It just gives it a great flavor. You're eating garlic and onion but it's literally in the salad. But it's really important. People use it for parasites. If they have worms, they'll take a garlic or two a day. People use it for if someone has Lyme disease. I mean, it's like an extremely potent antimicrobial. That's what it is. If someone has some kind of infection, you can take fermented garlic.
For the ear infections?
I wouldn't put, you could maybe
No,
take it,
itself.
if it's soaked in oil, you can put the oil in the air, or you could take it orally. It's a very important antimicrobial. So, I mean, these are herbs that you know, but I would also add herbs that are not common in the food store that I would say as a basic 10-point list of what to even own. Valerian I mentioned, which is someone needs a sleep aid. It calms the mind. Let's say someone has like something on their mind. Then like the later it gets, the more this idea just, you know how the nighttime has this way of just not making people... Exactly. It makes the ideas feel less clear, not more clear. So valerian helps calm the mind, relax a person, kind of like deadens the thought in a way and helps a person sleep. So it's really important. If someone has trouble sleeping, taking valerian every night is fine, and it will not cause an addiction at all, and is totally fine. But it's not addressing the root cause. Like if someone's on their cell phone until they fall asleep, their problem is the blue screen. The blue screen reduces the melatonin the body's producing. So if the body's not producing melatonin, how do you expect to sleep? People should not be using their screens. I mean, you should really limit their screens in general, and definitely not after nightfall. So there are so many ways to address sleep issues. Like don't eat right before you go to bed. Don't eat. I'm not going to talk about sleep right now. That's like the topic, but I'm giving an example. Like an herb is meant to be a helpful aid. There are definitely herbs that work to help a person on a healing on a deep level. Like we're talking about like the Essiac blend, which is really just a name for about 8 different herbs. Those herbs are addressing the root cause. They're cleaning the liver and cleaning the blood, right? But many times a person will take, let's say, Jamaican dogwood for a strong pain as a pain relief. That's not addressing the root cause. The Jamaican dogwood is not going to like fix the problem, make it the person out of pain, but it's not necessarily addressing the root cause. So what I'm saying is that a person needs the naturopathy aspect. Naturopathy is addressing a health condition at its root cause, a toxin, a food deficiency. Herbal medicine is a great way for a person to help themselves now. Like if a person is suffering, God forbid, from dementia, right? So yeah, there are herbs that could try to help a person with clarity, like ginkgo, and try to push things along, but it's not addressing the root cause, and it won't necessarily stop the progression of disease. A person who is suffering from, memory issues and starts feeling like they maybe have dementia, God forbid, they have to start seeing if they have silver fillings in their mouth. Silver fillings are half mercury. They're not silver, maybe 10% silver. They're 50% mercury. They release mercury vapors into the head with every bite of hot and cold foods. They have to, remove with an IOAMT.org dentist. These are scientists that were at the time of Dr. Hal Huggins in the 70s. They came up with ways to remove silver fillings. Also, the B vitamins in the germ and the bread in the flour, by milling your own flour. So you have like 20 vitamins a person needs to live. That's in the flour and the germ. So these are things a person should work on. Just giving 2 random examples of, you come in, 111. And these are 2 things that could help a person, let's say with dementia. This is addressing the root cause, because these are 2 causes of memory issues. So what I'm saying is that there may be herbs that could help a person, but a person has to use the root cause of disease. Like let's say, I'll give you another example. Let's say someone wants more breast milk, right? So yeah, they could make fennel and dill tea to try to have more milk. If a person is not drinking enough water, most reasons someone doesn't have enough breast milk is because they're not drinking enough water. The body is not going to produce a liquid to support another human if a person themselves is not producing enough liquid. Now, a person needs to drink half their body weight in fluid ounces. So if someone weighs 150 pounds, they need to drink 75 ounces of water a day. So most people are just dehydrated, which could cause a range of health problems from today to tomorrow. A person is mostly made up of water. Oh my gosh, an hour? Yeah. Better get out the door. Oh my gosh, I'm totally wrapping up. This is a topic I could talk about forever. Okay, I'm wrapping up now. Okay, last couple sentences. So the person has to address things at the root cause. If a person is not going to be drinking enough water and they're just going to be taking like their fennel and dill to try to have more breast milk, that's not addressing the root cause, and they have to use the naturopathic health concepts to try to heal from their health concern, and not just herbal medicine. Herbal medicine is a great tool. It's for many things, not the end goal. It could tide a person over. It's not addressing the root cause necessarily, okay? So we don't have time for question and answer. Should we answer 1 or 2 questions? I just keep my word? Yeah?
How long are you actually in the kitchen every day?
Such a good question. I get asked that question in almost every consultation. Because I'm telling people to like mill their flour and do crazy stuff. They're like, okay, do we want something in the kitchen? It's a good question. I originally, when I started making changes, like not buying any processed food and stuff, I started keeping notes. Like this day of the month, I'm making this. I want to know how many weeks could pass and like our breakfast bowls are done. Like how much time, and I started paying attention. And then I saw it wasn't as much as I thought I was doing. And by now, it's such a routine. It's like when someone goes to buy cereal, I'm thinking, okay, I have to go buy and make our oatmeal bowls. But don't ask what goes into the oatmeal bowls. It's like 20 ingredients, and it involves soaking my oats, grinding them. No, first dehydrating them and then grinding. Don't go there. Those breakfast bowls are a lot. You can make that's a complex food, but you can make such easy, healthy foods. It's the easiest foods, and I have recipes on my website, malkareichman.com. I have 30 recipes. I didn't put on photos yet, but 30 easy recipes. I started to put on some videos on YouTube so people could just learn to make easy food, and you don't have to spend forever in your kitchen. Also, when you make food from scratch, the food is much more filling, and you don't have people scrounging in your pantry because you're served a real meal, you know? And I make foods in bulk. I could freeze, or I put things in the fridge. Use glass bowl jars that have that seal. If you put in your hot soup, it'll last a week and a half in the fridge when you put it on with the seal. I think you almost need like a spoon to pop it off because it like suctioned in. You can make your vegetable soup once a week for supper. You don't have to be in the kitchen every day. I mean, we do make sourdough a few times a week for lunch every day, but a sourdough bread, believe it or not, it's like the basis of life. When you grind your own flour, you have the B vitamins that you need to live. It's literally the easiest food. I've made many foods. It's easier than making pasta. Let me tell you, making a sourdough bread that you are milling the flour from scratch is easier than making pasta. Now, pasta causes IBS, Crohn's, doesn't give you the vitamins you need to live. It's not digestible. It's just missing all your critical vitamins, and it's not fermented, right? So forget about like one is food and one is not food, but the effort is literally by hand. It's flour, water, and leaven. Leaven is a mixture of flour and water by hand. Flour, water by hand. You add a little salt. And the satiety that comes from bread that you milled the flour is literally unlike anything you ever experienced. One slice, you could just not eat the rest of the day and you'll feel fine. No bloating, stuffy, waking. That's fake bread. That's processed bread. That's dangerous food. We were supposed to talk about herbs for tooth pain. I'm just going to say very quickly in 2 sentences just so I keep my word. Clove is for tooth pain. Manuka, rosemary, essential oils. I want to talk about essential oils, but I didn't have time. That's for tooth infection. A person should never, ever drill their teeth. Never. The teeth self-heal like bones. I'm writing a whole book on how to be your own dentist. This is my very big topic. You never drill your teeth, just like you would never drill your toe. If your toe was infected or your toe was bruised, you would never cut off a piece of your toe and put on plastic or metal. You should never, your teeth are an organ. They have their own lymphatic system, each tooth, their own nerve supply and their own blood supply. They operate as their own organ. If an organ is in pain, you don't cut it off, you don't remove it, you address it at the root cause. Tooth pain is a sign that a person has to change their diet. There are herbs, like I said, as a band-aid, but the naturopathic concept that a person has to address it at the root cause means a person must change their diet. Any form of processed food causes tooth decay. That means granola bars, cereal, sugar in the 50 different forms that they write it as. Anything that's processed in general unhinges the body's, imbalances the body's calcium phosphorus balance. That balance is critical for a person to stay healthy, prevent disease, and prevent tooth decay. So that's the way to address it, the root cause. But the herbal aspect, of course, if someone has tooth infection, you can also rinse it with like a very salty water solution, because that will also get rid of the infection, not a root canal. Okay, the root canal is, don't ask what to do. You look on YouTube what they do in a root canal. They core out the tooth like they're coring an apple. They take out the whole nerve supply, so the person doesn't feel anything. They literally drill holes through the root to try to get rid of the remaining bundle of nerves. They fill it up with a lead-based mixture, cap it off. It's like, the more I talk, the scarier it sounds. It is just scary. Look online what it looks like. They cap it off with something at least 3 times the strength of tooth material. That means the opposing tooth could crack or get dented. Because imagine you're grinding with tremendous pressure like this against something that's 3 times the strength of your tooth. So over time, the opposing tooth gets damaged. But that's the least of it. The lead is the least of it. Destroying the tooth is the least of it. The cap is the least of it. The worst part is that it's a dead tissue stuck in the head, which causes so many health problems. Root canals have been linked to the most health problems ever, to a single source. That is not my quote. That is Dr. Meinig, who is the former head of endodontics, which is a society for root canal specialists. The former president wrote a whole book after he learned about Dr. Weston Price's work, and he started seeing how it's linked to so many health problems. Because dead tissue, the body has no way to pull this dead tissue out of the head. So many health problems, from leukemia to cancers to chronic headaches to chronic sinus problems. I mean, it just doesn't end, to kind of food sensitivities. The list of health problems is just too long to even start.
Miscarriages are linked to the dental problems. Someone just told me.
Infertility, for sure. First of all, someone has silver fillings. There's also no, mercury doesn't belong in the body, so there's also no limit to the number of health problems. I was dealing with someone with hearing loss in the 60s. I was like, do you have silver fillings? Yeah. You need to get out your silver fillings. Like, you know, the phone, the EMF, but the silver fillings.
Is that the same thing as
Infertility.
retainers? Like
Built-in retainers is something else. Built-in retainers is like when they literally anchor in metal doesn't belong in the mouth and they
no,
should
it's
take it
like
out.
post braces, something.
Yeah.
Like,
They
is that-
anchor in like a wire, which doesn't belong in the head and should be taken out. It's probably half nickel. Nickel is a carcinogenic metal. Root canals are so much worse because it's dead tissue that's trapped in the head. Close second is the silver fillings, but root canals are probably worse. And the bottom line is that, you know, these are herbs that can help a person with tooth pain. When a person's in tooth pain or any pain, they kind of feel desperate. So they go to someone who says, I can help you out of the pain. What is the person doing? They're breaking the organ for them. That's not the help the person wants. I'm telling you how you could use herbs to heal the tooth. The tooth could drain the infection. The standard for dentists is when there's a tooth infection, the tooth has to come out. Like they'll pull out the whole tooth. They'll pull out the whole tooth. Would you pull off your tooth that was a tooth infection? Would someone pull off their eye if their eye was infected? I mean, why the tooth? Save the teeth, you know? And people need their teeth for a lifetime. And when a person starts with that drill, it starts the cycle of death for the whole tooth because the tooth is pretty small. And every time the fillings don't last, they change the filling, they take off more of the tooth, and tooth is gone. And people don't want implants. Implants cause the bone to rot. I'm not even gonna get started on that. It's not a dental talk. There's a lot of talk about dentistry. Okay, one last question, I'm gonna call it a night.
Can you explain
Yeah.
what modality is naturopaths?
Yes, so naturopathy is basically concepts that a person has to address the root cause of disease. So basic ideas would be, the biggest thing with naturopathy is actually staying away from toxins, believe it or not. That's like the first rule. Because if a person is, let's say, working in a hair salon, and they're spraying these aerosols, if someone has to leave, by the way, you don't have to stay for this question, they're spraying these aerosol cans, like, you know, and then they're suddenly having breathing issues or infertility, or there's just no limit to the problem, let's say, these aerosol cans can cause, right? I mean, Google the chemical and see what it could cause. So, you know, so how are they going to start fixing that with herbs? Now, yeah, they could address the symptoms with herbs. They feel fatigue. Yeah, there are herbs to spike up your mood. You feel you just feel bad. You just feel blah. The chemicals, the body is so sensitive. I mean, is strong and sensitive in the same way. The body is so resilient. There are people who have decades of bad food and bad diet and bad dental work. They pull out the bad dental work. They change their diet. They say it's 1 month of healing on doing the right thing for 1 year of doing the wrong thing. So look how potent and powerful the body is. Yeah, like the
Finish it out.
the body, meaning exactly, it's encouraging. The body is so incredibly potent and powerful and built and wired towards healing. It's always trying to move towards healing. It's just when there's a block, it's being blocked. But on the other hand, it's also very sensitive. These chemicals that are being used in food, ear products like the scents, Don't even get me started on the sense. That's like a one-way trip to Parkinson's if someone's sitting and breathing that in. Nerve damage. The sense, the plug-in sense, it's like all over the place here, I'm telling you. The plug-in sense, the cleansers, the solvents that you're breathing in, that you're touching on your skin, that you're, the medication is its own class of stuff. But I'm saying whatever you're taking in that's not food, we're talking, right? That is all toxins. Toxins is the most serious way to poison a person. So if a person is using even non-stick cookware, or a person is just drinking water that hasn't been filtered, they're taking in like 60,000 different chemicals. The kidneys were just not designed to filter the person's water. People were designed to drink clean water. They just were. So a person is not drinking clean water, and then they go to an herbalist like, okay, can I get an herb for kidney function? Oh, sure. Here's some corn silk. Take corn silk tea. Yeah, maybe it'll help clean out the kidneys a little bit and will help production of, just getting things going. Take some Essiac to clean the liver and the blood. They're not addressing the root cause. Root cause is clean water, clean food, clean air, addressing nutritional deficiencies. Exactly what you would, it's basically food and toxins are the belief with Rechavia is that food and toxins are the cause of disease, and it's not germs and genetics. Germs and genetics is what the Western world, like since the last 100 years, like since the Flexner report, just the history of how we have no idea what herbal medicine is. You need someone to come and talk to you about herbs when I'm sitting in your backyard and they're in the shop. So why am I here? It's because it's the suppression for the last 100 years. In the 1920s, in the US, the Flexner report was put out, was backed by Carnegie and Rockefeller. These are companies that were selling synthetic stuff. Was it petroleum-based product? They wanted to sell herbs made of petroleum-based stuff. It's pushing their markets, and they basically put out a report to try their best to use their power to marginalize other forms of medicine. So before 1920s, there was no anyone called themselves a doctor. You're a healer. You put up a shingle. You literally put up a shingle. There were 8 forms of different medicine. They were called the eclectics, which is people who dabbled in herbs. They did other natural modalities. With the Flexner report, and in the 1920s, they slowly consolidate and monopolize medicine. I mean, they won lawsuits against them, AMA, for monopoly. In the 1980s, the chiropractors won, and that's why the states made it that they could bill insurance for chiropractic, because they're like, AMA is a total monopoly. It was one form of doctor, it's one form of healer. But the bottom line is that it's still, in the US, it's still a monopoly. The traditional medicine, since before 100 years ago, has been traditionally herbal medicine. People use an herb for healing. You could, Avram Avinu wanted an herb for his bris. He went to Mamre, he got an herb. That's what people did. They got an herb to help themselves. In the 1920s, then in like the 1800s, they started with, let's say, better forms of surgery. They used a lot of mercury and bloodletting. And in the 1920s, that's when they started trying to organize themselves, the medical society, to make formal set of rules of what they do, what they don't do, schools. That's how they really got it organized. But what's really crazy is 3 generations in, people think that MD is the only healing modality. And look, it has a place. If someone needs emergency medicine, they should go to an MD. If someone has an ectopic pregnancy, if someone has a gun wound, a knife wound, they belong in emergency medicine, and they have to hope that they don't die of those interventions, that they don't do too much interventions, right? They're just hoping for the best. But if someone will die without emergency care within a day or 2, they need emergency medicine, and it has its place, and we should not need this stuff. But if someone has chronic health problem, they do not belong cutting out defective body parts, suppressing it with drugs. People need to address it at the root cause. Chronic disease and pain is an email from the body. Please do something different. The body has no way to email a person, right? Tooth pain is a very early warning sign because the teeth are periphery, so the body will demineralize the teeth before the bones and before the rest of the body. If a person doesn't take that warning sign from the teeth, the bones are next. If a person eats a demineralized diet, that causes cancer, right? So teeth are a periphery. A person can live without their teeth. It's not cozy, but it's the early warning sign. Don't kill the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger, right? Okay, we better go. It's over. Good night. Literally an endless topic.